Forward.
We have to read back to the chapter.
We went.
Okay guys, we're being super touristy today before we become too Bostony or Bostonian, because real Bostonians do not do this. We are doing the Freedom Trail, and it's the 4th of July. So we are here at the the Bunker Hill Monument, as you can see, and it's a commemoration of the battle that was fought on June 17th, 1775, in which about 2,400 colonial troops went up against 3,000 British, and they lost almost twice as many casualties as we did. So
Kept them in check.
yeah, kept him in check. So we lived to fight another day is what happened.
Okay, so we are walking the Freedom Trail, which starts right there.
Yep.
And it was the idea of a journalist in the 1950s who suggested it to the mayor. And by 1954, there were 40,000 people walking it every year. And so it just ties together all the major historical sites here in Boston. And it starts here at Bunker Hill, which was where a battle took place about a year before we declared our independence. And we held our own. We did okay.
Yep.
And then to commemorate doing okay, we built this bad boy. So, if my
this was the don't fire till you see whites of their eyes.
yeah, if my memory serves me, we won this June 17th, and on July 4th, 1775, which would have been 2 weeks later.
We lost this one.
Yeah, we lost this one, but we survived, right?
Yeah.
But 2 weeks later, George Washington takes command of the United States Army down in Cambridge Commons.
Yep.
And with that, he took the abandoned cannons. So basically, the British, held the hill, but then they backed out. So, and then we took their guns and made the army official. So that's kind of a victory. I think it's a victory. So I think it carries some extra meaning being here on the 4th of July, first of all, and second of all, in a time where we're rehashing the whole concept of what kind of force they can impose their laws with and on whom, and what freedom actually looks like. So it'll be interesting to walk this trail with those things in mind. It is also notable how white and upper class this neighborhood is. It's like they only got the job half done. Freedom for some of us. We got to finish the job ourselves.
Yeah, on that note, I read this poem by Frederick Douglass this morning, and I'll put it up right here. Speaks just to that, how 4th of July and celebrating independence is kind of the biggest turning a blind eye sort of situation to the fact that freedom for all is not the case, still like 300 years later. Yeah, not cool.
So you're telling me that fewer people died fighting on this hill for American freedom than have died by police brutality since George Floyd was killed like 2 months ago?
area just like so colonial and cute. Look at this.
So the USS Constitution is the oldest commissioned naval vessel still on the water, owned by the United States, and its nickname is Old Ironsides. If anybody ever saw Master and Commander, that ghost ship that was chasing them was supposed to be French, was modeled after the US Constitution. And yeah, it served for, as far as I know, a couple of decades before they decommissioned it before the Civil War. And now it serves as a museum, just like the USS Lexington that we visited like a dozen episodes back. Currently they're not letting people on board. However, this evening they are firing their cannons for a 21 gun salute for the 4th of July.
So this is where the British landed before fighting us at Bunker Hill.
Not a selfie though.
Oh, okay.
This is a selfie video.
Selfie video, that's fine.
Yep. USS Constitution. And I mean the gun doors are open.
It's the oldest ship
In the world?
That's still floating, I think.
Yeah, that is commissioned by the US Navy, although it is commissioned as a museum, just like the Lexington. So it is not in active service. However, I believe that the Navy actually controls the payroll for everybody who's on there. So still counts.
It's like my name.
Yep, just like your name. Norelle. So the Leonard P. Zakim Bunker Hill Memorial Bridge. It's named after, Leonard P. Zakim, who was a civil rights activist who, his catchphrase was building bridges between people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very,
Fitting.
very fitting for the name of an iconic bridge.
Yep, we're taking a smoothie break. Only 2 stops in. It's kind of a hot day though.
Yep, cheers.
Cheers.
Apparently there are 3 main types of headstones. They'll typically be a skull, a cherub, and an urn. It doesn't actually say what the cherub and the urn really represent, but it does say that the skull ones go back to the more medieval tradition of reflecting on your mortality, and the reason why they would put these gravestones in the churchyard. So when you go to church every week, you think about the fact that you are going to die. And from personal experience, I know it's also tied to the Knights Templar, and they used to have the skull and crossbones during their initiation and make them think about their last will and testament, so that they know every day they should live like it's going to be their last. Like the John and Abigail Adams?
It's John and Abigail Adams. 1783?
Maybe it's a different one. I mean, he was president of the United States around that time, wasn't he? I'm gonna look it up. Hold on. Not the John and Abigail Adams. You know Yanni?
Yes.
Is this boring to you?
No, I'm just tired.
Anyway,
I'm good.
different John and Abigail, whatever. Yeah, I'll call her Abby for now.
Although, scandalous, on her gravestone it was listed that she was a comfort to Mr. Enoch James.
She was cheating on John?
Yes.
Girl. So they give this guy a little medallion saying, "Thanks for being in the Tea Party." But then they take away his grave and make it a path. What's with that? This church right here, that's the one up by land, 2 up by sea one.
So the tours for the church, right there, adults $8, children $4, but if you're a Boston resident or a child under 6, it's free. I think we should update our driver's license, babe.
Yeah.
This is the Paul Revere Mall, which is what I call a square with a fountain in the middle. And
Statues over there.
yeah, big ass statue. We'll show you in a sec. It's basically just a bunch of plaques thanking everybody for doing great work running the country for the past couple hundred years. You got like a couple ones to the Spanish-American War, Benjamin Franklin, a bunch of other patriots, Paul himself.
Several amazing women.
That's important. Apparently Paul Revere wasn't all that famous in his day. I mean, he knew a lot of the famous guys, but the general population didn't know him until that poem was written in the 1830s, 40s about the midnight ride of Paul Revere. Back at the Paul Revere house. Already seen it. Again, surprised it's made of wood.
So, I wanted to take a second to talk about Paul Revere because we just walked by his house again. And Paul Revere really wouldn't have been all that famous without wonderful Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem, Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. And funny story, he wrote this poem after he wrote a whole bunch of poems about horrible things about slavery. And he stopped writing about slavery before he wrote Paul Revere's Ride, but he still encouraged other abolitionists of the time, like Charles Sumner, who got beaten pretty brutally on the floor of the Senate by a North Carolinian, or Carolinian, I don't know, anyway, senator.
He had a fancy walking stick.
Yeah, because of his stance on slavery.
Anti-slavery, yeah.
So, I don't know how Paul Revere felt about slavery, but the guy who made him famous, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow,
Hated it.
definitely hated it. So, go Mr. Longfellow. So that's the Sam Adams tap room, which is funny because we were living by the brewery for a little while, and then we're right in front of Faneuil Hall, which was built to be a slave market. Very not good, but then it burned down in the 1700s. Take that. Ha.
Well, they got the Samuel Adams statue, and I gotta say, the Sam Adams brewing people sure knew where to put the tap room correctly.
So this circle is where the Boston Massacre happened, right in front of the State House right here. And it should be a forever reminder about what happens when a government turns its weapons on its citizens.
Out in front of the old State House and Boston Massacre site, and then Faneuil Hall is right over there, where they also discussed the independence situation and also civil rights stuff, and all kinds of debates went down there. But Queen Elizabeth was here in 1976 to celebrate the bicentennial? Yeah, bicentennial, 200 years of American freedom, and apparently she gave a speech from right up here.
Nice. Blue Angels are here. You can hear the rumbling, they just flew over. There they are. And they have a spare B-52 as well. I think we're coming up on the Boston Tea Party staging spot. And you know, I just thought of something. Don't ever tell me it's not okay to sometimes destroy public property when it's a symbol of something that you really need to make a point about when it's unjust. That is the Old South Meeting House where they staged the Boston Tea Party. Again, I'm not saying it's good to riot. I'm just saying sometimes it's necessary. Expect to see a memorial to the Irish famine. And also they like to point out that they sent ships full of food to Ireland to aid in the relief, and then they welcome them with open arms here in Boston. Because that's what Americans do. You welcome immigrants.
We're here at the Old City Hall, which is obviously under some reconstruction or something, but it's also now Ruth Chris. Anyway, yeah, see? So we were reading up, and this little donkey behind me is actually a statue that a guy named Robert Webb brought from Italy in the 1950s, and he wanted it as part of the Freedom Trail, so he gifted it to the city of Boston. And apparently Boston didn't want it in the first place, but then he eventually talked them around to it by talking about it as a symbol for the Democrats, and anyone who was Republican who wanted to stand in opposition could do so. But as you'll know,
there's nobody here. Nobody's standing against it.
Nobody's standing against it. But then eventually the city of Boston came to like their cute little donkey statue. And he is rather adorable. His name is Roger Webb, and he's much more important than just the donkey statue because he saved the Old City Hall from a wrecking ball before he brought the statue in. Not only that, but there are statues of Benjamin Franklin and I don't know, one of the Adams. And they were students at the oldest public school in Boston, which was right there.
It's actually Benjamin Franklin's grandpa, not Benjamin himself. Not sure where he's buried. He's got plenty of statues around here. Norelle's running out of energy. We're 2 stops away from the end of the Freedom Trail. Then we're gonna find some lunch or dinner. It's like 4:30. We did find another signer of the Declaration of Independence because we got Sam Adams over there. And here we got the big signature, John Hancock. That is it. We just finished the Freedom Trail. I think Norelle's dead. Something about 85 degrees and being hungry. But anyway, it's a good day to do it on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
It's a different
Great weather.
spirit and a vibe to it.
Great weather, and
I still think that something about just walking the path again and thinking about why there was a revolution in the first place and the spirit of those people who did it makes you realize that you almost gonna have to live it like Christmas. Live every day in the spirit of revolution in a way. Stand up against injustice and keep fighting because, you know, it's an ongoing battle to get a more perfect union.
happy 4th, guys. There's fireworks
Everywhere.
everywhere, all around us.
I just discovered it twice.
Coming out. It's episode of the week.
Oh,
Don't you dare.